Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Comic Book Cove. I'm Tom Morris.
And I'm Josh Hilderbaum.
And we are going to discuss comic books, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I've heard that term be thrown around a few times recently.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. We just like to read comic books, and we like to talk about comic books. And right now we're still reading DC Rebirth as they continue to put a lot of teeth, I guess, a lot of weight into their stories.
Yeah. I mean, we're finally kind of getting to the point where the stories are pretty straightforward. I mean, a lot of the issues in this episode we've covered sort of the the introduction, where all the characters are coming from. It's a lot of continuations of fights too, but a few plot points popping up here and there.
That's true. So this episode is kind of going to be a little light on the overview, and we're going to have discussions on them because, like Josh said, a lot of them are right before the end chapter of these stories. What is that called? The penultimate?
Mm-hmm.
The penultimate chapter.
We're getting close to the climax.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then we have one new Rebirth title this week. So this week on Comic Book Cove, we are going to discuss the following titles. Aquaman number 5. Green Lanterns number 5. Justice League number 3. Superman number 5. And Supergirl Rebirth number 1. As always, spoilers ahead. Aquaman number 5, The Drowning Part 5, Executive Sanction. Well, we're going to just go right into this issue because there's not a lot to really overview, but let's just talk about the action.
Yeah, pretty clear the U.S. military can't handle Aquaman and Mera very well.
No, they can't.
They get pretty thrashed, and their big gun, so to speak, is Superman.
Yes, we do see they call in Superman.
Mm-hmm.
But before they do, let's talk a little bit about how at the very beginning when Aquaman and Mera come out of holding, they're surrounded by all types of military, the troops. They have some choppers up in the air, and they have an authorization to fire. Mm-hmm. Well, when they do fire, Aquaman is very steadfast, and no one dies today, and he means no one. So while he is taking down the troops and the weaponry with kind of kid gloves, Mera, once they start shooting at Mera, she's all for just letting him have it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And we do see Aquaman get kind of annoyed at a couple ones. I mean, we see like one, I think it was a tank gunner, happens to shoot at Aquaman, and Aquaman turns at him like, he gets this look on his face like, oh, crap. And I mean, he rips more turrets off. He's more about destroying the, just the means for them to attack us.
Yes.
And he does save that chopper pilot from,
He does.
a pretty grisly demise. And Mera does not hold back at all.
She doesn't.
And what I'd forgotten too is they're not married yet.
Nope.
I mean, they're betrothed to one another, which I think that's how you pronounce that word. I've never been good at pronouncing that word because I can't stand it. But this is this is kind of I mean, the marriage isn't even on the rocks yet. It's
right.
They're still leading up to that point, and they're finding that they have very different views of the surface world.
Yes. One of them, Aquaman, being he still wants to keep channels of communication open and work on diplomacy. The only reason he's fighting is fighting to defend himself and to get to water so they can go back to Atlantis and figure out what is going on here. Mm-hmm. Mera is, you shot at me, I'm going to mess you up as much as possible. And one of the scenes that you liked is when Mera used her powers to kind of short circuit out all the tanks.
Yeah. She'd used her hydrokinesis a little bit when they first broke out of the facility. She took out a whole corridor full of troops, basically sucking all the, maybe not all the water out of them, but quite a bit of the moisture out of them, leaving them dehydrated. This time she uses it on like a platoon and vehicles, and that screws up. As Mera mentions, the vehicles have a lot of water in them too, just like the human body.
Yep.
And it almost made me think, geez, if you would just do that to the whole troops, you'd be clear.
Yes.
You could make a beeline right to the water. So maybe it's a power she can't use that frequently, or
Right.
maybe she can't use it on a whole, on the giant mass of troops that they had right when they came out.
Yep.
Who knows? But it's a neat usage of that power instead of using taking water and curling up into a ball and throwing it. You're drawing it out of the troops.
That was pretty interesting. They were keep on fighting. They were jumping, or big jumps. They said you might as well say they could fly because as big as the distance they cover. And then we go into another plot point. Black Manta finally meets the head of Nemo. And what is his name? The Fisher King?
The Fisher King, or as we may know him, Santa Claus.
He looked an awful lot like Santa Claus. When we talked about the issue before the episode, you were saying, didn't he remind you of, and my mind was thinking, Santa Claus. Set the scene for him. What? He was Santa.
Yeah. I mean, he's this big, very kindly, jolly-looking dude who seemingly rules the entire world through the water, sitting on this big throne. And then when he gets off that throne and he's just walking towards Manta, he's huge.
Yes.
He's gigantic. I mean, it's weird. I was sort of expecting a pirate vibe. I mean, with Blackjack. I mean, she's got the eye things and the name Blackjack.
Yes.
I was sort of expecting, I don't know, sort of like a modernized Redbeard or Blackbeard or something. Here's
more of a scruffy-looking person, weathered by the ages, not good old Saint Nick, jolly old. I was waiting for the reindeer in the background, but it was very. I don't know, for the build-up that they were talking about, this guy claiming to be a world power just looked too friendly.
Yeah, I'm curious to find out what, if anything, of his backstory we're going to find out.
Right.
I mean, who is he? How did he join Nemo? And it's also interesting, too, because when he introduces himself to Black Manta, he says, I'm the Fisher King. I have influence beyond anything you can imagine.
Yes.
I'm really more powerful than you can imagine. And Manta says, you're thinking too small.
Yes.
And my thinking is, okay, what does Manta have that they don't? Or what haven't they tried?
Yeah. So hopefully we see this organization that's supposed to be this, if you want to call it shadow government all around the world, have some teeth, and maybe the Fisher King is not what he appears to be.
Yeah.
Because he was too jolly. Just too happy. Hey, look at me. I'm on my throne. Hey, how you doing?
Yeah.
A little bit too fun.
I was thinking maybe Manta wants to take advantage of Atlantis. And then another thought clicked into my mind is that I don't know if this is still true in the New 52, but in the classic comics, Mara's not an Atlantean.
Okay.
She's from like another dimension or something, like a dimension of water people. So maybe, if that's still canon, maybe Manta's caught on to that.
Okay.
And maybe that's another resource for them to tap.
All right.
Eventually. I don't know. We'll find out.
Yes. We also got to see Joanna Stubbs back this issue, going to the lighthouse to try to drop off something to Arthur.
Yep.
Arthur Aquaman.
And that was timely, because it was just a couple issues ago I had to ask Tom, hey, is that Royal Navy gal still alive? Because I wasn't even sure at this point, like, what happened to her? But and she gives this package that, of course, is not zoomed in on, so we can't see. And she gives it to a police officer who is named pretty prominently, so I'm also wondering if she's going to be kind of a recurring character.
Yes, what was it, Officer Erica Watson?
Yes.
They made a point to say her name, so you know she's going to be there a little bit into the future.
Yeah, just like Joanna Stubbs.
Also, was it the Secretary General that gave the order to use lethal force, and then the president called up and I think called that off, and instead they sent in Superman. So that issue, like Josh says, is we're going to see next issue. We're going to see Superman and Aquaman mirror. Are we going to get the hero versus hero fight that every comic book story has? Is diplomacy going to win out? And what's going to happen with Atlantis observing, aren't they going to send their forces to go retrieve Arthur and Mira?
Yeah, because if they're keeping as close to tabs on the action as they seem to be, they're going to see Aquaman fighting one of the most powerful people on the planet.
Yes.
Maybe fighting.
Right.
Who knows if that fist fight's even going to happen? He's at least being confronted by them, so that's certainly not going to help. I was excited to see Superman because Superman and Aquaman are pretty close.
Yes.
Kind of in terms of powers. I mean, they're similar strength levels. They can. It varies how much with Aquaman's powers. But what did make me think of was when I played through Injustice: Gods Among Us, and Aquaman and Superman have a few lines when you have them fight. Like you'll hear Aquaman say, I'm almost as strong as you, and Superman says, yeah, almost as strong as me. And it's this sort of, he's always in Superman's shadow.
Yes.
And they're both from separate worlds. They're children of two worlds, and now we see them possibly going head to head, or at least facing off.
What did you think, we'll wrap this one up, but what did you think when the government was saying Aquaman, one lady was, well, he's a Justice Leaguer, and they say, but he talks to fish pretty much.
Yeah,
he's totally dismissed him.
He's the fish guy.
Yes.
Yeah, he's not, he compares him to Superman or Batman. He's the fish guy.
Yep.
He's just there for the numbers, I think they say, or something like that.
Right, exactly, pretty much.
It's one of the things that annoys me that DC is apparently aware of the fact that there's a portion of the fandom that doesn't like Aquaman. There's the Aquaman's crappy because he talks to fish. We've already been through that. They've already established he doesn't talk to fish. He sends his thoughts into fish.
Right.
It's a little annoying, but hopefully maybe they'll be proven wrong in the comic.
Right.
So
Aquaman's still a great series, and we're getting to, I think, the wrapping of this particular storyline. I'm looking forward to see what happens in Aquaman 6. We might get a fight, we might not. We might get Atlantis coming to save their king and soon-to-be queen, and we still have to find out what happened to the deluge, who was behind the bombing of the boat, and what happens next with Santa Claus and Nemo. Those are things that we need to know.
Santa Claus and Nemo seriously sounds like a Disney Christmas film. It really sounds like it should be one.
Yes. And moving on. Green Lanterns number 5. Rage Planet Part 5. And Josh, I'm going to let you start off with this one because it's still another battle issue, but we see some of the different characteristics and what drives Jessica Cruz and Simon Baz.
Yeah. One of the things I really enjoyed is their sort of simultaneous inner monologue.
Yes.
Where, Simon's talking about himself as a Green Lantern, Jessica's talking about herself as a Green Lantern. When the other Red Lanterns appear, Simon says, "Oh yeah, I've seen some of these guys in space. I've trained against some of them." And Jessica says, "Oh, these guys look like," I think she says, like garbage crossed with bad jokes or something. And then when Simon names them all, she's giving her own her own little names. Fury 6, Angry Computer, and Zilius Zox, and Mr. Potato Head on acid, or something like that. It was really enjoyable, and I think I don't want to say predictably the fight doesn't go that well. For the Green Lanterns.
No, they lose bad. Jessica has pretty much a panic attack and a crisis of conscience, crisis of self. Oh, geez. She just literally curls up into a ball and hides. And she does not want to interact. She's thinking, why did she do this? She's really, anxiety's kicking in. She's pretty much helpless there. She tried for a little bit, and then she got overwhelmed. So that was kind of her story arc. Simon, on the other hand, he was doing pretty well, and then he goes against Atrocitus. Tries to use that, what was it, the emerald power that he has?
Yeah, I don't think they really named it. It was just sort of his, the purification thing, like used on Bleez, thinking maybe if he cures the main bad guy of his rage, maybe that'll extend onto his followers, and sort of predictably, That doesn't work
No.
on a guy like Atrocitus.
No, who is pretty much, he says, rage flows through his body.
Yeah.
He is made of rage.
Yeah.
And it looks pretty, it looks pretty grim for the Green Lanterns, but the Red Lanterns are having some fun, and your favorite character is the cat.
Oh yeah, Dexstar. Yeah. Oh yeah, Dexstar gets the most important mission, which is to take the Rage Seed, which is conveniently the size of a cat toy, down into presumably the center of the Earth, or at
Yes.
least the center of the Rage Tower, and send that down there. And he very merrily goes on his way with this little, adorable-looking little weapon of mass destruction in his mouth.
Yes.
And I thought it was interesting that when Jessica has her little panic attack, her thought bubbles alternate between almost her panic self and her calm self.
Yes.
Her calm self is saying, okay, slow down, stop, slow your breathing, that'll slow the panic. And then there's the side that's facing a bunch of grotesque aliens that want to kill her,
Yes.
saying, no, if I go out there, I'm going to get killed. And what I noticed too is every time she's tried to make a construct, whenever it fails, the ring says willpower diminishing. Mm-hmm. And when she's hiding there, the ring isn't saying willpower diminishing. You would think that the act of hiding from an enemy would diminish the willpower of someone whose entire goal is to overcome fear.
Yes.
You're giving into fear. But apparently it's not giving into fear by hiding, or at least maybe not in the ring's eyes. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it looks like she can still come out of this.
Hopefully.
As a Green Lantern.
Yeah, they're in a bad spot. This issue is really kind of examining what makes them tick. I liked it when she was talking about, I want to be home with my Pokemon.
Yeah.
And she was, my Charizard. She's naming off these Pokemon she'd rather be, or she's worried about her sister. And Simon is talking about, I could be purring like an engine. He also has another Emerald Sight Vision.
Yeah. And what I notice is interesting is, I don't know if it was the last Emerald Sight he experienced, was this one, it's right after a flashback.
Right.
He's thinking about him and his brother, getting into that car crash and
Right.
and him trying to, the coma that he eventually got him out of, and that leads to the Emerald Sight. And it's right before that, his ring says willpower spiking.
Yep.
Which makes me think, is this something he's doing subconsciously? Mm-hmm. I mean, could it be some external force? I mean, for me, it's almost like if you have a PC or something, it's like having a background download.
Right.
You'll notice your performance getting kind of sluggish if you check the task manager. You'll see,
Yep.
Firefox.exe downloading something. It's sort of like, almost kind of like that. Like a computer having an overload of that. Mm-hmm. And it's also interesting, we see the Justice League in there, in his Emerald Sight, and they're infected with rage. So if things couldn't get much more dire than they are at the end of this issue, things might get more dire at the end of the
Yeah, things might get worse before they even try to get better, or it might just be worse for all. But this issue kind of leaves us, there's no hope for the new Lanterns. And we'll see what happens. But we go into another issue where it looks like the Green Lanterns are doing all right. Mm-hmm. And we're talking about Justice League number 3. Justice League number 3, The Extinction Machines Part 3. And like we saw last issue, the Kindred are big people made up of little people.
Yeah, normal-sized people.
Yes, big people, regular people.
Yeah, and it's interesting that there are, at least 4 of them or so?
I think so.
And they seem to have attributes from the Justice Leaguers they've fought. There's a big red one who says he's reclaimed the speed, which presumably is the one who touched the Flash. There's the one with, I think they just call it the Light.
Yeah, the Spectrum.
Which is the one who touched Simon. And the one that was in Atlantis has reclaimed magic.
Yes.
And has kind of that gold little seal. So it's interesting that
The other one was Wonder Woman.
Yeah, the big purple one in Russia. Yeah. It was interesting that they're sort of taking on the forms of the Justice League. Mm-hmm. It was kind of an interesting interesting coming for that. And then we're still trying to figure out, I mean, not only what are they mentioned they're going to gather and sing,
Yes.
and they're going to do that until the Purge, which is these space insect drone robot things, just break the Earth, as they call it.
Yes.
And then the Kindred want to, quote-unquote, end forever. And I seriously left this issue just kind of scratching my head. Like, holy cow, this is... It's going to take a lot more explanation for me to...
Yeah.
And, I mean, that's intentional, but that's a lot to
Yeah.
process. That's a lot of metaphor to process.
Yes. What did you think of when Wonder Woman was trying to rescue the people from the one Kindred, and she ends up getting swallowed in?
Yeah, just assimilated, so to
Yes.
speak. Yeah, and it's interesting too. The Kindred aren't super hostile towards the Justice
Right.
League. They're when she is brought in there, they're asking, "Who are you? You're not one of us." And what I picked up on was one of the thought bubbles in there says, you're not a Kindred, but you're similar.
Right.
So it's Wonder Woman is obviously something like a Kindred. And then they also, towards the end, they repeatedly ask, "Who are you?"
Yes.
Apparently, they don't even know, maybe. And then there's that big flash of light. So, I mean, that certainly ties into what Wonder Woman's going through in her own series,
Yep.
trying to figure out what's happened in her past and what she doesn't remember. So it would be really telling if even the Kindred, which are these apparently, nigh powerful beings that they mentioned can appear on like any planet, anywhere. Because they mentioned that they could use any population from any, which again really lost me. But like, whoa, okay. And then what I was trying to grapple with too is really we're getting the most story with Aquaman in Atlantis, because Aquaman has the little zodiac crystals that he's
Yes.
carrying around. The one Kindred of magic in Atlantis hears the song the crystals are playing, and which apparently amazes Aquaman, because he says, "Oh, you hear that too? Does no
Right.
one else hear that?"
Right.
which is one of the lines I really enjoyed. But that Kindred says, maybe with that song we can prevent the breaking of the Earth.
Right.
So maybe the zodiac crystals are going to be one of the things that stops the Purge from destroying the Earth.
Yeah. So another thing that they're hoping helps against the destruction of the Earth is Batman goes to see Superman and enlists him to journey to the center of the Earth and try to stop those three cores from doing whatever they're wanting to do. And Lois has a moment with Clark kind of saying, "Hey, I don't want you to leave. I'll come back." She doesn't. It's kind of like they've been here before. They know it's dire straits. And we've seen that. So maybe it takes place after Action Comics. Maybe she just remembers all the time Superman has went into action. So there is a little bit of kind of gloom in that too. But it always feels like Superman's always reassuring. Here's my cape. I'm not going to really need it. Might get burned, but no, it's like a comfort. Here's my cape.
Yeah. Well, and this is sort of different circumstances too, because I mean, obviously Lois has lived through Superman dying or apparently dying, like he did during the Doomsday fight in the 90s. But here's a universe where a Superman did die.
Yes.
And now there's another Superman, and now that Superman might die. So there's sort of it's her trying to fight against the reality of that.
Yes. They have a great relationship, but it's always nice to see when it's kind of out of balance a little bit. What did you think about Cyborg? He was able to kind of change his frequency to start monitoring or starting to listen to what the Purge had.
I think he was recalibrating his systems so they would give off the signal that the Purge was using. And up to that point, I mean, Cyborg was absolutely holding his own. I mean, against the Purge that were on the Watchtower, and also the ones that attacked the Kent's farm. And then he switches those signals, and he gets swamped by.
Yeah, he
by
gets
the
swarmed.
bird.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That was
which-
kind of something.
Which again kind of holds to the sound aspect.
Yes.
Is we have the zodiac crystals, they give off a sound. The Kindred mentioned that sound may be the key to stopping the purge. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. And we can't end this issue without the most important plot point. Batman gets offered a cookie by John.
Yes, that was cool. You
Yeah.
like a cookie?
Yeah. Hey, why not? Right in the middle of your dad going off to the center of the earth and your mom getting in Batman's face saying, if he doesn't come back, I'm holding you responsible.
Yes.
Would you like a cookie?
I like Jonathan.
Yeah.
My favorite.
Yeah.
One of my favorite characters. But in addition, there's two little plot points we need to go over real quick. You're thinking with the sound that the zodiac crystals might hold the key to this. Also, the Green Lanterns go off planet, look like they go through a wormhole, and they find out where the purge is coming from. It's kind of a destroyed planet, but there is a bunch of warships still coming through.
Yeah.
So we might not have seen the end of this invasion.
Kind of sounds like, we see it in comic books every now and then. Well, and not just comic books, but science fiction
Yes.
in general. That sort of, the horde of
Yes.
insect-like, or marauders that comes through and destroys the entire planet, then moves on to the next one. And that definitely looks like that. But it also looks like, from what we see in this, Jessica and Simon aren't having too hard of a time so far. I mean, they're destroying stuff, so that's a big change from what we see fighting the Red Lanterns and Green
Yes, it
Lanterns. Like, wow.
And once Superman gets down to the center of the Earth or wherever he's at, he says he can't even see all that pressure that's put on him. He tries to use the heat vision, but he's saying, wait, my heat vision is going to be nowhere near as hot. And he's really struggling with the added pressure down there, literally and figuratively. So we'll see if Superman can get out of it.
Yeah.
And if he does get out of it, maybe Jonathan will have a cookie.
With
for him.
Batman.
Yeah. That would be nice if Jonathan just brought a plate of cookies at the very end and has cookies for the whole Justice League. Maybe this is how this little story arc will end, is they're all on the Kent farm. Jonathan they're all eating cookies. We can only hope.
Yeah.
We can only hope in our wild imagination. So we're going to take a break. There won't be cookies involved in our break. But when we come back, we're going to talk Superman number 5 and Supergirl Rebirth number 1. We'll be back in a moment.